Hello again. McHeli, a mod that adds vehicles. I've mentioned it in my previous video. Not to drag this on, the mod is one of those classic mods that adds vehicles to the game. In spite of its age, it still has a small community of players and even developers. The mod has one massive issue, however, the codebase. I have not seen such an awful codebase in my entire life. The mod's technical depth not only makes bugs almost impossible to fix, but also insanely hard to extend. That does not mean people don't try. As I mentioned in the previous video, again, there are forks such as Reforged or McHeli, which add some interesting features, though development is still inhibited by the fact that each change causes a cascade of bugs that are only found after the mod goes live on a server. That's where I come in, as I want to use the mod in my up-and-coming mod pack, Warfactory 2. While there are many people who just want to cram more features, mod needs some long overdue refactors to make sure that it's not limited by the horrid code. One of the first things I see as a problem is the parser, or really, the whole McHeli config schema. I have no idea what EMB was smoking while making that, but what the fuck, man? The parser is basically a line reader, reading each line one by one. The reader is not aware of the type of data it's supplied, nor it has any idea about the other settings previously set. Furthermore, all the arguments are purely positional. You want to know what the fifth value of an add seat is and what type it is? Better get that 2017 document ready and hope it's actually correct. Oh, also make sure you know what the default values are if you only care about the fifth argument. I will be honest with you, I'm not sure how anyone put up with this shit for so long. So what do we do about it? Firstly, let's set out some standards for us, something original did not have. Okay, so we need a parser that has some kind of standard of doing things, can have context, can properly deal with different types of data, is readable and comprehensible for a user that didn't memorize every variable possible, does not sacrifice on feature coverage, and is maintainable. There's another aspect that needs to be dealt with too. You see, McHeli people are really resilient to change, so to avoid my standard from being completely disregarded, I need some kind of way for content creators to convert from the old to the new in a painless way. Okay, so first, we need some kind of system for parsing data that is already a standard. Since it's 2025, we got a bunch of options. JSON is the most obvious one as it is built into Minecraft already, though JSON is not that user-friendly. HJSON was made to solve the whole user-friendly aspect of JSON, though I think we can do better. I decided to use YAML. YAML is a human-readable data serialization language, often used for configs for server software or things such as Docker. It's well regarded as it is a nice language to type in. The only small issue is that Minecraft does not come with a built-in, nothing a quick shadow dependency can solve. The biggest attribute of using proper serialized language is that it actually can map directly to Java objects. So instead of dealing with messy random string data, I can get the entire file serialized into a massive map. That's convenient, though that does not mean I am done. You see, what I get is a map of strings and objects, but what I need to have is a car. So how about we turn it into one? For this, however, we need to know how a vehicle in McHeli actually works. So there are 4 types of a vehicle: helicopter, tank, plane, vehicle, and also if you're Ajax, a ship. Let me ask you a question. What do you think a luxury Lamborghini is counted as? A tank, of course. I remember the time it rolled over Warsaw back in the 40s. What about a boat? Well, that's clearly a plane. This emplacement artillery looks like a vehicle to me. Alright, but what all of those have in common? They are all aircrafts. That's not a joke, by the way. All the common data is stored in an aircraft base class of the mod. So now we need to somehow take the map of objects and turn it into an aircraft, a weapon, or whatever. A common thing that is done is laying out the class in such a way that an automatic parser generator can deal with it for us. This is not an option we really have, as the structure of those objects is already all over the damn place, and changing it too much would shatter the backwards compatibility. Right, so I guess we'll have to deal with this manually. How much work is it really? Well, we need to write a parser for the common components of all vehicles, then do all of the specific vehicle parts. On top of that, I need to set up the HUD and WEN parser, so the components of those vehicles can function. After doing some quick math, this is about 2.3k lines of code to rewrite. I am already questioning the validity of my actions. Okay, so what's important to do now is figure out how to lay out the code in such a way that we don't end up with another case of if-else spaghetti. This looks very simple. Just write that for every possible variable, all 100 of them. Frankly, that would be way too simple. Having such a deep look at the source code made me discover some peculiar things. Some variable names were extremely bizarre. For example, can you tell what throttle up down could possibly mean? If you guess acceleration, then you are correct. EMB as a proud DSL of course had to misspell the word damage everywhere in the codebase. Though this does not compare, however, to what I can call the component system. McHeli allows players to define vehicle parts that will make them not only function but also be animated. You can make your wheels move, your tracks rotate, your turret count can rotate. It is all a really cool system. Also, the system that took me the longest to implement. Every single part requires two values: position, rotation, and then a few extras such as rotation constraints and other. With this finished, next were all of the vehicle specific things such as the plane VTOL functionality, tank weight system. I could go on. There's 100 different small variables, and the process is basically check if users included the variable. If so, copy the variable to the object. If it can be multiple types, check what type it is and apply it. There were a few hang-ups I had. For example, vehicles can have seats, shocker, but also they can have racks, for other vehicles. Those racks, however, can sometimes take up places where seats would be, and vice versa. So for this, we have an option called exclude seats, where you can specify which seats cannot be occupied concurrently. Sounds clear so far? Here's the issue. You need to specify which seat prevents other seats from being occupied. Let's consult this 10-year-old machine translated text file some Brazilian guy gave me. Right, so apparently it is based on the ID of the seat, which is derived from the order you input the seats and racks. So if we input seat 1, rack 1, and seat 2, the IDs will be 1, 2, 3. Psych! Actually, the codebase treats the seats and racks as separate until during a later stage of the loading, where the racks get appended to the seat list, resulting in seats occupying the beginning of the list, the racks staying where the seats indexes, and the documentation's fucking wrong. Things were not so simple with HUD parsing either. HUD parsing was a bit more special. Instead of straight variables, it really was a basic sequence of things to render with rudimentary condition system, variables, and even the ability to include the other UI elements with a call for function. This is how vehicles could, for example, change color of a UI in the plane based on its altitude, or whenever a weapon is reloaded. Overall, it was pretty impressive what EMB managed to implement here, even though the implementation was a bit esoteric. The first thing that stood out is that none of the variables were proper variables. They were all expressions written with strings. For example, if you didn't specify an element size of a number by the string, that would be treated as an expression that would be executed each time the UI is rendered. Another difference was that due to it being a sequence of actions, obviously, this could not be a map of values like it was before. Instead, it was just a simple list that would line by line include steps. From there, I re-implemented every possible function, from draw line to the if statement and the call statement. I won't lie, even though the stuff in the prior section was obtuse, this was even more. The hard part was probably the most buggy part of the entire development process for the parser. One time, the variables can be put into an object directly, sometimes the values are tokenized, and then separated internally. That totally hasn't caused me a while to realize. That was done eventually too, however. Remember when I said we need to make conversion as simple as possible? Well, this is the part where we will make this easy for users to convert those. Obviously, this process must be automated and able to convert data in large quantities. There are a few ways to do this. The most obvious way would be to take the TXT files and then just transcribe them to the new format. This would work, however, this would mean we would need to rewrite the TXT parser, and I think I've got a better idea. Both parsers just produce the same thing, a vehicle, which you can drive around the game. So what if we take that and turn it back into our files? That would be much simpler, as I don't need to then look at the horseshit in the TXT parsing code. This is the already ready and prepared vehicles. That's assuming the original EMB parser won't allow to load things that are impossible or straight up raw shit. Well, not only the original parser was unmaintainable, the documentation straight up lies about what the mod does, but also it's written with undefined behavior that it breaks once you actually apply any standards to it. Anyway, with this emitter system in place, all that the user needs to do is load the favorite content, and the game will take every single piece of that and dump it to a YAML folder in the game directory. From there, you can just replace your TXT junk with the new system. With this elephant in the room handled, it's time to handle arguably much bigger Great Wild Well, which is